The Icelandic New Energy, just briefly, has been working on different elements within environmental friendly transport over the last 12 years. We have been responsible for all the demonstration of hydrogen activities in Iceland, among them building the first commercial filling station, buses, hydrogen vehicles, both internal combustion and fuel cell vehicles. And we're also now responsible for all the different domestic fuels in Iceland. So in a sense, it doesn't matter how we produce the fuel. If it's produced in Iceland and it's environmentally friendly, then it's on our table. The INTELECT project is funded by the Northern Energy and Transport, and the goal of the project was to look into incentives and actual cost calculations for having electric transport in the different Nordic countries. So the problem we were looking towards is that all governments in the Nordic countries have taken steps to increase environmental transport. And as part of the policy, they have put in place different incentives. They're different on country level, they're different in city levels. Some of them are physical, some of them are non-physical, and some have worked well, others haven't worked very well. We also have different regulations, different barriers, certification, homologation, and different fuels. And the goal was to map vehicle taxation and available incentives in all the Nordic countries, including governmental and municipal incentives. So the main issue was actually to get a matrix where customers or policymakers and companies can actually view all the different incentives which are available in the different countries. And this is something we didn't find anywhere. There was no one location where you could actually see all of this. The key outcome is actually a calculator where we have made two different calculators which are for the customers or companies to see what it actually costs to operate an electric vehicle or electric transport compared to others. We actually included all the different environmental fuels like methane, plug-ins, and etc. So giving a presentation on nothing but figures is quite a little bit boring because more or less what we have been collecting is a matrix. It's all already available online. So I'm going to show you a couple of slides which are pretty crowded on figures just to indicate what we have actually assembled. But I think the only way to really get the outcome of the project is to go to the project website. This is a typical matrix which we made. This shows the taxation of normal vehicles in the different countries. We included Denmark, even the Faroe Islands and Greenland is included into the figures. And so we have different taxation system. Most of the countries actually have taxes based on CO2, but some of them have fixed taxes. Iceland actually changed their taxation only last year to CO2. Sweden is different as a vehicle producer. So this is there's a lot of pictures like this in the report. If we go into the alternative fuels, we can actually see that we have biomethane, natural gas, ethanol, hybrid plug-in, battery vehicles, and hydrogen. So you can actually find now on one location all the different incentives. And what we are focusing on here today is actually the battery vehicles and hydrogen vehicles. You can see we have no CO2 tax and zero VAT in Norway. But there are other countries who have zero, which is Greenland and Faroe Islands. So what we can utilize this for is actually to show other policymakers what some countries have done to accomplish what, for example, Norway has done. And there's a huge difference when you have 25% VAT on vehicles compared to this. So there are three countries who actually have no taxation on vehicles. In Iceland, we have different. There's no VAT on hydrogen vehicles. And the story about actually when Norway revoked their taxation is that Iceland was the front runner of having no VAT on hydrogen. And then people in Norway went to the Norwegian government and said, well, Iceland has done this, we have to do it. And this is how we can actually use information like this. This is then a cost calculation. There's a number of cost calculations in the report. But if we look at the major issue is that if we take a vehicle of a certain price with a certain emission, we can find out actually how the price is calculated and how the cost of different elements come in. And this is Norway again. And you can see the difference between a car that costs 21,000 euros as a gasoline vehicle and a 35,000 euro battery vehicle. So actually the battery vehicle is cheaper in a sense. If we look at, this has been a very good success. If we look at Denmark, just to compare, we can see the price of the gasoline vehicle and we can see the price of the battery vehicle, though we still have full VAT on the battery vehicle. And there's a lot of people asking why hasn't it been the same success of launching battery vehicles in Denmark like we have in Norway if the business proposition is the same, or at least as good. And now we are stuck. Okay. So here you can actually see the figures for different types of vehicles. You can see that in Faroe Islands, Greenland and Iceland, electric vehicles are almost non-existing. In Iceland we only have 6 battery vehicles, but we have more hydrogen vehicles actually than battery vehicles. In Denmark you have just under 1,000 vehicles, and we could see from the slide of Ole Henrik that you have, since this slide, which is only 4 months old, or these figures, you can see that Norway has sold about 1,000 battery vehicles, compared to in Iceland we have sold 1, in Greenland 0, the Faroe Islands 0, and there is no taxation on vehicles there, and still there is no sales of different vehicles. So you can also see the hydrogen vehicles. There's a number of hydrogen vehicles in Denmark and Norway, and then you have other alternatives which are different figures because you have different types of vehicles, methane and etc. And can we have the next slide? So the calculators are actually the most important. All of these figures you can see there and how to calculate and compare costs of different types of vehicles is all included in the calculators. So you can compare battery vehicles with gasoline vehicles, or battery vehicles with biomethane, or any type of vehicles you can compare. And the calculator is designed to be very user-friendly, and it's designed for various groups, like for normal customers, decision makers, policy makers, companies, and etc. Next one. And next one. So why are we trying to do this? Is that we have found out that the public is extremely confused about what is actually happening. People don't know what's the difference between the different technologies in general. At least that's what we find out in most other locations. People are also waiting for one solution. The normal public is waiting until somebody comes out there and it's all going to be batteries, or it's all going to be methane or something else. And I'm convinced that the future will be a couple of different alternatives. But we need to provide information to the public and help the public to understand the difference in different elements. Terminology like battery vehicles, hybrid vehicles, plug-in hybrids, methane, plug-in methane, hydrogen, possibly plug-in hydrogen, etc., For the normal public, there's no way to understand all those different terminologies. And even in the hydrogen world, we don't even make the world simpler by having different types of storage media. We don't even use the same terminology, like we have bars or PSIs or megapascals for storage of hydrogen, and etc. But our result is, when we do public surveys, we've seen that most of the public wants electric transport. But the expectations are extremely high. And in general, people think that you can charge vehicles much faster than you can actually charge them. This discussion about fast charging and normal charging and etc., people don't understand the difference. And when you actually give them a battery vehicle, people that have never driven a battery vehicle before, and you tell them it takes 8 hours to refuel, that's something they don't understand, because they read in the newspaper that you can actually buy a car that drives 400 kilometers and you can charge it in 30 minutes. And they think actually you can do that from home. So I think we need to spend more time and more effort on educating the public for the future. Next slide. So it's also difficult for the public and the private industry to understand the difference in incentives. And that's why we actually made the two calculators, to be able to utilize and understand how the different elements are working, and also including the total cost of ownership, so that the public can actually look into what type of vehicles you have and compare it to any other type. We are One calculator is focusing more or less only on the total cost of ownership, and that's only available in English. But the other calculator has all the different variables, all the different types of vehicles, all the cost of different fuels in all the different Nordic countries. It's available in all the different languages, even in Greenlandish and Faroese. And this information is all available at this website, which is an Icelandic website. You will be able to find it directly on the Grønnbil website, orkusetur.is/intellect. There you can actually access the calculator and see how it can help you for the next step and work on the calculator and play around with it. If we have the next slide, this is just an example of what it looks like. This is in Icelandic. You can put in the price of gasoline, you can put in the price of methane, put in the price of hydrogen. You can choose 2 different types of vehicles. You can have a battery vehicle on one side, you can have a gasoline vehicle on the other, or you can have a methane compared to battery, whatever types of vehicles. This is updated regularly, directly connected to the price of fuels in all the different countries. So it should help you in actually calculating the different costs driving each kilometer, so that you can understand if there's a benefit of actually using an alternative compared to whatever type of vehicle you're using today. It even includes the difference in cost, and it shows you how much savings of CO2 you're doing, and you can also put in what you think will be the lifetime of the vehicle, what's the different investment cost, the battery lifetime, and etc. and etc. And of course, how many kilometers you're driving. The next one. And then you can get different types of graphs to show when actually the different types of vehicles will be cost competitive. Next one. We found out that more or less there are no regulatory barriers into the Nordic countries. We are actually blessed with quite a good system. All the governments in the Nordic countries are very positive towards utilizing environmental friendly fuels and vehicles. And even Denmark and Iceland have given exemptions to demonstration vehicles which do not have full certification. And even when Norway has demonstrated different types of hydrogen vehicles or vehicles that have not been homologated, we have actually taken them first into Iceland or Norway, into Iceland or Denmark, gotten an Icelandic number plate and then shipped them to Norway, and then you can drive them on an Icelandic number plate in Norway, which is kind of a strange way to do it, but that's a possible way to do it. Next one. Then we have, of course, a lot of different incentives. I'm not going to list all of them. They're all listed in the project report. We have free parking and we have infrastructure available in most of the locations. However, Oslo and Norway is very different with much larger charging infrastructure than any of the other countries. For example, we have 6 public charging poles in electricity. So you can see we have 6 electric vehicles, so they can all be parked at the 6 different poles and charged at the same time. But this is something that needs to be built up and is definitely missing in many of the locations. But I think this is the reason why actually Norway is successful. It's more of the non-financial incentives. If we have a next slide. You can see here that there's a list of different incentives which are available in Norway. You can see there's no import tax, no VAT, low annual registration fee, free parking. We have no road tolls, access to bus lane, free admission on national road ferries, increased mileage, tax benefits to company cars, and etc. The red ones are those who are only available in Norway. And we are now using this for our politicians to try to get the same benefits into other countries like in Iceland, to show them that the success is not only based on the direct cost of operation, but probably the success in Norway is based largely on other incentives which are non-financial and do not cost the same. The next one. So what we also think, and we've heard from the car manufacturers, is very important, is that we have a long-term policy. It's very difficult to put in policy which is only for a year or two, because the car industry takes decisions on 3 to 5 years. So if a car manufacturer is basing their decision to market vehicles into different locations, then they need to see that the policy is a long-term. And as you could see on the previous slides, many of the countries have now policies until 2015, which at least gives all customers and companies understanding what kind of environment they will be working in. And also projects go where incentives are. That's for sure. When the vehicle manufacturers are not delivering a lot of hydrogen and battery vehicles into locations where there are no incentives whatsoever, as this technology is more expensive than the conventional technology. And the last one. So I think actually financial incentives are very necessary to kickstart the market, and we've seen that in Norway. I though think the non-financial incentives are equally important, or even more important for success. It will actually be quite interesting to compare what will happen in Iceland. We have finally, by showing the Icelandic government what the Norwegian has done and what the success there, finally Iceland is going to revoke taxation on battery vehicles fully. This will happen actually in 2 weeks when we actually have a full free access of battery vehicles into the country. So it will be nice to see if the market changes its behavior and starts buying battery vehicles, as they will be almost comparable in price with no VAT. And the same will be for driving the vehicle. In Iceland, electricity is half price or less than half price what you have here in Norway, so it's very cheap. We will though add one twist to all of this, is Iceland will revoke 66% of the VAT on plug-in vehicles which have CO2 emission lower than 50 grams per kilometer. So that is to support plug-in vehicles to come to the market and hopefully initiate build-up of infrastructure, making or paving the road for the future electric vehicle. As I say, giving a presentation on nothing but figures and what the taxation system is and etc. is very difficult. I encourage you to go to the website, and I think you can find it from Grønnbil. And there's a lot of information, and the calculators can help all of you to take business decisions in the future and encourage policymakers to encourage them to provide different types of incentives. So thank you very much.